You ever see this happen? A political leader comes along promising to just smash the system, give power back to the people. But then they get elected, and it feels like the exact opposite is happening. Well, the source material we're breaking down today says that's not an accident. It's a pattern, a playbook used by so-called outsiders all over the world. Yeah, this quote really hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? So, in this explainer, we're going to unpack that global phenomenon. We'll look at how candidates who sell themselves as rebels against the elite often end up following this surprisingly similar path once they're in power. And it's a path that can weaken the very democracies they promised to save. Okay, so what is this strategy actually called? It's known as anti-establishment populism. And the reason it works so well is because it taps into something totally real. That legitimate frustration people have when they feel the system is rigged or that they've been forgotten. And right into that void steps a leader who says, I'm your voice.
All right, so let's break down this playbook. How does it even start? Step 1, it's all about the pitch. It's about crafting this powerful story of the outsider, the one hero who's going to go to battle for you against that corrupt establishment.
And what's so clever is how this story gets tailored to fit the local scene. I mean, look at the US. You've got Donald Trump, a literal billionaire, who somehow managed to sell himself as an outsider fighting the swamp in Washington. Then you go over to India, and Narendra Modi plays up his humble roots as a tea seller's son to stand against the country's political dynasties. The details change, but the core message, it's exactly the same. I am one of you, and I am fighting them. But okay, what happens after the votes are counted? This is where the story takes a sharp turn. All those promises about giving power back to the people, they start to look a lot more like grabbing power for the leader. And it's wild. It's like a checklist of actions starts to pop up again and again. First, go after the independent media. Label journalists enemies of the people, a tactic we've seen from the Modi government. Second, try to weaken the courts, the very institutions that are supposed to keep them in check. And third, you start chipping away at the democratic process itself. Think about Donald Trump challenging the 2020 election results. It's all right there. And look, this stuff has real-world consequences. It's not just talk. Take India, for example. If you look at the data from global democracy indexes, you can see a pretty noticeable decline in the country's rankings since Modi came to power in 2014. It just goes to show that these are actions that are actually eroding democratic norms. Okay, so we've got the pitch, we've got the power grab. Now for the final piece of the playbook. To keep that hold on power, these leaders often need an enemy. But not just that vague, faraway elite anymore. No, now they need an enemy inside the country. This is where the strategy shifts from just us versus them populism to something much more divisive. The goal now is to create an other, a group, maybe based on their race, their religion, their immigration status, that you can blame for all the nation's problems. It's a classic move, right? Rally your base and deflect any criticism. You can see this all over the place. Take Geert Wilders in the Netherlands. His anti-Islam platform, which includes promising to ban mosques and the Quran, isn't presented as prejudice. No, it's framed as simply defending Dutch culture. Or look at Hungary's Viktor Orbán. His whole political identity is basically built on this idea. He pushes the Great Replacement theory, this nasty conspiracy that migrants are being brought in to replace native populations. He targets migrants, often uses anti-Semitic tropes, and all the while, he's positioning himself as the one and only defender of a Christian Europe. And then there's Italy. Matteo Salvini's slogan was so simple and effective: Italians first. But what did that translate to in the real world? It meant his government started turning away boats full of migrants at sea, an action that human rights groups absolutely condemned. So when you step back and lay it all out, the pattern becomes incredibly clear. Whether it's Trump's promise to drain the swamp, followed by challenges to the election, or Modi's anti-corruption crusade, followed by media crackdowns, or Argentina's Javier Milei fighting the political caste with inflammatory rhetoric, the source argues it's the exact same playbook, just with different accents. So this brings us to the big conclusion. What does this whole Trojan horse pattern ultimately mean for voters and for the health of democracy itself? Now, to be fair, there is another way to look at this. Is it really a deliberate playbook, or are voters just so fed up with business as usual that they're willing to try radical change? And that's a valid question. After all, these leaders often get popular for a reason. They're talking about real problems that mainstream politicians have ignored for years. But here's the crucial point, according to the source material. That anti-establishment message, it's a Trojan horse. Voters think they're buying disruption, a voice for the common person. But what they really get is a system where power is consolidated, division is the main tool of governance, and the very democratic institutions designed to protect them get weaker and weaker. Which leaves us with the final and maybe the most important question of all. If these leaders are the answer that so many people are choosing, we have to seriously ask ourselves, what was the original question? What deep-seated problems in our societies are making this anti-establishment illusion so dangerously appealing in the first place?